Hi. So I got to give Marvel credit, but I also got to discredit them at the same time, and I'm going to tell you why. One of my big time gripes in terms of my criticism with the direction that Marvel goes in, they try to do too much. And because they try to do too much, it creates a universe that is not cohesive at all. It's almost that like they're trying to just put out as many books as they possibly can. And one can make that argument very easily, even now when you consider versus DC, how many books they put out weekly. I don't know if it's cronyism. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they just have to give people these books to write, so they're just coming up with these things. But what it has done is more so created this universe in which all of these different things are happening, but there doesn't feel like there's any sort of cohesion. Even with some of the crossover events, the most recent ones, we had Absolute Carnage and War of the Realms last year. And those were okay, but you had, as an example, Daredevil, and his book was taking place smack dab in the middle of War of the Realms, when he basically replaced Heimdall for a section, and that didn't even get acknowledged in the book. Now, I know that some people are going to make the argument, well, that's difficult to do. No, it isn't. It just requires that the editors and the creative directors and whoever are in charge of what is being put out, they're simply on the same page. And if they're not, that's not my fault as a consumer to have that expectation. That I get it. All stories are not going to be equal, and not everything is going to flow like in chronological order. But you have to have some sort of cohesiveness when it comes to these books. So Incoming, which is a $10 book. I mean, it was pretty big too. So it was $10. Was it worth $10? Probably not. But it's $9.99. And what this was is it popped off the year, at least in a sense, even though it came out Christmas last month. Again, I'm behind. Sorry. So it comes out, and I'm reading. And I'm like, okay, this is okay. And the reason why I'm saying it's okay is because it's refreshing, in the sense that we are having all of these events that are acknowledged, and some of what's being acknowledged is really where the books, or more so where the characters, if they don't have their own book, more so where they left off. And that's what I love. So as an example, Annihilation Scourge took place right before this. The week before. And we deal with a situation where I believe Thrasher's trying to contact Nova, if I'm not mistaken. And Nova is going through it. He's basically the last of the Nova Corps. And if you followed Annihilation Scourge, you know that he basically sacrificed himself, but Annihilus brought him back to life. And he's sort of dealing with that, and that gets acknowledged here. That just happened like the prior week. You also have, for example, Captain Marvel links up with Blue Marvel, and his relationship with Monica Rambeau, talking about, while they were talking, more so him and Captain Marvel were chatting about what the main narrative is going on. And here he's like, oh, well, she's on some strike force or something like that. That, again, is Monica Rambeau acknowledging the fact that Monica Rambeau is in strike force. That comic book where it's like a side team that the Avengers are leading. Not the Avengers, Blade more so is leading. You also have like Daredevil and Elektra. That's how we actually started the book. Daredevil and Elektra are fighting on a rooftop training when they run into the Masked Raider. That, again, is what's taking place. He's not Daredevil anymore. He even says that. He's not going by Daredevil right now, even in Daredevil book. That's what's taking place right now. Agents of Atlas. So Jimmy Woo and Agents of Atlas team and where they left off fighting the dragons and Pan. And if it's crazy how I've read all these books, it's kind of nutty. Going into that, you got like Wave and Arrow, what they've been dealing with. Swordmaster linked up with Ares and Shang-Chi in his book. They're talking about that. So what this is doing is something so simple, but you will. I mean, it's sad that I have to appreciate it because it doesn't get done often. That is, even with the Fantastic Four, same there. Hulk as well, what's happening in Mortal Hulk. All of that is in here. Like where they left off in their books or where those teams left off. Even with Champions. So that's all I ask. And what Incoming is, it seems to be a situation where I guess I can kind of summarize. Mass Raider, if you read Marvel 1000, they kind of brought that character back. And I mean, he was like OG Marvel issue 1, 1939. They brought him back. He wears this like cosmic mask or something, in which it basically gives him the equal power of those that he's fighting. So the previous holder of the mask no longer has it. It's some new guy, and he basically came across this dead, it turns out to be, if I'm not mistaken, a Kree soldier or something like that was dead, and that's how everybody got sent down a rabbit hole, because he notified Daredevil notifies Jessica Jones notifies Captain Marvel goes and speaks to the Avengers, and that goes into like linking up with Adam and Blue Marvel, and Blue Marvel goes and links up with Iron Man 2020, that version of Iron Man. So all of it is just one thing leads into another, and then some squirrel changes into a tree, and that's the whole. Yeah, it sounds kind of silly. You kind of got to see it, but that's what happened. And then at the end, we get these like Korean squirrel soldiers who are like, all right, we're about to go to battle. This is it. And they say at the end of the book, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be picked up, A4 Empire, which is going to go on sale in April. So we have a while. Also, Krakoa and X-Men was acknowledged in this as well. So yeah. Venom was talked about. Like, so basically all the books, and this is how you handle an event, right? High stakes, and you acknowledge the fact that you have other books that exist, and the characters that you're using in this crossover event has other things that that's going on. You can't just ignore those. You see what I'm saying? You can't just ignore those. This is what I've said, that with the Year of the Villain thing, DC, for example, has done a way better job in this past year, and they had a very strong year, still are, in the whole Year of the Villain, and how it made all of these different books really cohesive in terms of what it was an easy setup for that. So what this tells me is that they can do it, because they even got basically all these different writers to write certain portions of this book. So what they're telling me is that they can do it. They just don't. So I guess you can be pissed at that. I don't know. I don't know how to really take that. But the inconsistency has been my issue with Marvel Comics in this day and age. Too many books, a lot of fluff. Books, people that have books that shouldn't have books, and so forth, right? And not to mention some of the silly narratives that they put forth in the actual comic book. But what Incoming shows me is that they have the capability, because this was decent. They have the capability to do it, yet they don't. Not, at least not consistently. This is how you set up an event. Right here, this is near perfect. This is near perfect. I'm saying that this is a near perfect way to set up a big crossover. This is how you do it. Not Absolute Carnage, which just came out of nowhere right after. Should have probably just been a little limited series, but instead they made this big deal, and it's like that happened right after the War of the Realms. So what I'm picking up from this is that they have the capability. So I guess I got to stop bespeaking. When I'm like, they don't know what they're doing, they can't do it. No. They can do it. They just choose not to. And that's why I'm saying that I can be happy that this exists, but also looking at it from a different perspective, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Where has this been for the last years? This is how you set up a crossover event. This is how you set up an event in your universe, high stakes. stuff going on, intriguing, what's going to happen next. Don't give too much away, but you acknowledge the simple fact that every single character that you're using in these crossover events have their own books or have stories that they've been a part of. You can't just, and what they have been doing is they just act like that never was a thing. It's like, yeah, we're just going to do this event. Here we go. This is how you do it, Marvel. More of this, less of whatever other garbage that you've been putting out.